All right, here we go. Take one. Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about variation in modular. I was chatting with a couple of friends about this question of how do you keep a limited set of modular voices interesting and different over a full set. Given this is modular, we have many options. You can have 1 million voices, we can completely repatch during a set. But if we don't want to do that, how do we keep things simple but still have variation in the sound so it's not sounding like you've got exactly the same module, exactly the same sound through the whole set? So today we're going to go through a few different options that use things that you probably already have in your case. So we're going to talk about 6 different options you can use. First one is changing your filters and envelopes, then looking at modulation, changing wave shapes and oscillators, adding and removing effects, mixing up sequences, changing CV and gate, mixing up those patterns, and then finally using external in and mixing different sounds together inside the oscillators you already have. So let's take a look at the case and see how these sounds, and hopefully this gives you some ideas on how to add some variation during your live sets. All right, let's go. All right, here we go at the studio. So let's take a quick look at what I got in my case. We've got the dual harmonic oscillator here, which is a beta module from Wrapup project. Mutable Instruments Platts or Plates clone, I'm never sure how to pronounce that, and the XOX heart. So those are the 3 modules that I've got to work with, plus a bunch of different modulation and things here. So let's talk about the first one, filters and envelopes. So this is the sound of the DHO coming through here. So one of the most simple things, changing the frequency content, taking out the highs, adding in the highs, but doing that with the envelope. Can change what was a very short percussive sound into something that's now more of like a longer drone, or even take more of the highs out. So that's a very simple thing that we could do to add some variation and change the sound based on the same oscillator. The other thing that we can do is change the wave shapes and the wave types. So one of the great things about Mutable Instruments Platts, it's called a macro oscillator. So it's actually got a whole bunch of different oscillator sounds here. So this is kind of like a weirder bell sound, just a simple sine wave. But if I just click this button, that's going to turn into more of a percussive sound. So just by playing with these things, it's a great way to, and you can even modulate these kind of changes. So that's another very simple way that you can change that in your oscillator. In a similar way with the XOX heart, like a lot of modules, it's got this is a square wave, which gives kind of that bit of a dirtier sound. And then you can also switch that to a triangle sound, which is also nice and kind of dirty. So this is a bit of a subtler difference, but it still changes the variation quite a bit and lets you sort of be able to change how that's going to be sounding through your set. The other thing that we can really think about, given that we're modular, is modulation. So going back to this sound here, let's get a bit more percussive so you can kind of hear what's going on. Here I've got an LFO going into the wave folder, and most modules have CV inputs and an attenuator. So here it's all the way to the left, so there's no modulation coming through the wave folder. But if I turn that up, this LFO is now going to be changing that wave folder sound over time. And I can do the same thing with a modulation. So now I've got some evolving sounds coming through. And I can speed up how much those modulations happening. I can adjust the amount. And depending on how you want your sound, this is not clocked to the beat. So it's going to be floating over top, or you could actually sync that to an LFO. And I'm also sending random voltages into the mod there as well. So you can do that from an LFO. So the random voltages are clocked, the LFO is not clocked. So that gives you some different options. And then the next one I want to talk about is a relatively simple one, but just effects. So for a sound like this, just sending it to a delay, and maybe some reverb as well. So that's a nice sound design, but it also quite radically changes it based on what you were doing before. So it can turn something that was like a lead into more of like a background kind of pattern. Here I'm using the Endorphins Milky Way for some reverb. I've got the Erica Synth Zen delay just out of frame here for the delay. And I've also got Monsoon, which is a Clouds clone. And that's also modulating the effects. So I can change how all those kind of things sound. Then the other thing I wanted to mention is around swapping out the gate and CV sequences, which are usually used for pitch. And most of the time, those are coming from the same place. But given this modular, we can mix and match that up. So for example, here we've got the 303, and I've got the pitch, a copy of that. So I can take a copy of the same pitch and put that into Platts and bring that in. So now the pitch of this is matching the pitch of the 303 acid line, but the gate is coming from a different source. So you have this mix and match of kind of overlapping and putting those kind of things together. And this can be really powerful. Stevio does this, Mylar Melodies does this. And it's a really simple way to be able to have some things that are related, the pitch is related, but the gate sequence is different. And I can also go the other way and swap that around too if I wanted. So that's yet another thing that we can do, or I can just take that out. And yeah, I like playing things with no vault per octave. That can be really helpful as well. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was external in. So that's one of the things that's often common on modules like the XOX Heart. This is an external input here, which is modeled after the 303, which had an external in. The DHO has a mix in. Other modules will allow you to do that. And that's really nice because what it does here, say if we take a copy of the aux out from Platts and put this into the external input of the XOX Heart, now what we're doing is we're hearing the Platts sound going through the same filter and VCA path of the 303 voice. So it's actually being sequenced twice, once by the Platts sound that's feeding in, and again by the 303. So that's the 303 sound. That's Platts going through it. And then we can actually mix those together, which gives really nice matching and mirroring, because I can still change the underlying sounds in here. Or make it more of a percussive sound. So you get acid on acid, which is kind of nice. So that kind of gives you a bunch of different ways that you can arrange these things. And of course, you can put these together by adding some effects on that as well, or even having both of them playing at the same time. So we've actually got two copies of that. And that's the last thing I'll mention with the copies of the audio. With the DHO here, I split the audio. So one path is going through the Bastel Cinnamon in this envelope, and another path is going into the CD VCA, and then into this envelope. So this and that are the same underlying oscillator. So that's this path here. And that's going through this path. So same oscillator, but quite different sounds, which also gives you a lot of variation. If you want to play with them together, you know, actually pan them left and right and have them coming out through different sides, which gives you a nice option as well. So hope that gives you a good sort of overview of just some of the different options. I really wanted to focus on some of the things that were quick and easy already in your case. lots of different variations, and given this is modular, many different permutations to combine noise, randomness, modulation, effects, VCAs, all those kind of things. And the other thing I should mention with modulation, everything that I showed around the frequency of the filter, the envelopes, effect sends, all those kind of things, all of that can also be modulated. So you can have modulation on your modulation, which really makes the patch come alive and opens that up with a lot of variation. So let's head back and we'll just do a little bit of a quick wrap up, and yeah, hope that helped. All right, so hope that was helpful and sparked some ideas. As I mentioned at the beginning, you can mix and match, come up with your own ideas, all these kind of things. And for me, it's really that balance of I want to have some consistency, feel like it's the same sonic palette throughout the set, so it really feels like a cohesive whole over 60 minutes or 90 minutes, so really things hang together. And at the same time, keep things interesting and changing so that it doesn't sound like I've got exactly the same sound going through the whole set. So I hope this helps. Let me know what you think in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll get another video out to you very soon. Bye-bye. Ciao.